So shooting star and window candlestick patterns are very interesting patterns themselves here. And in a shooting star, we'll start with that one, you have a small real body and a long upper shadow, right? And what it's doing is it's implying the failure of a trend to continue. It's a failure to close near the high. Certainly the high being in that whole upward shadow, that whole long upward line on the trading range going up. It's not getting you near how high it got during the trading period, the trading day, for example. It's coming back down. So if you can see in the example here, we have a green candlestick, and if there were, let's say there are other ones out there before that, so we're on a trend upward. I threw in a doji just for fun. Sometimes you'll see shooting stars after dojis. Again, a doji shows that there's indecisiveness. So maybe there's been a trend. We haven't had a real, let's say, reverse or anything, but we have a doji saying, yeah, they might be getting a little indecisive. It could either keep going up or keep going down. We got to, or go sideways. We got to watch. And then boom, all of a sudden we see this shooting star. And we see that, basically, that there's a high established as far as at the opening, but the close is closing lower. That's why it's a red candlestick, because the close is lower. A close is lower than the high, or the close is lower than the opening of the day. But in that candlestick, that first red candle, you can see has that real high kind of shooting star, kind of like the shooting star as far as the range of prices. So there was a lot of higher prices going up there. There was people trading at much higher prices, but it all started to come down, towards that real body there on the shooting star. And then you want to see what happens next. It's a good indicator that you've got a failure of the trend, and then we're going to go sideways or start a reversal of the trend and start going downwards. So if you shoot a shooting star, be aware that if you've been owning a security, that might be a time to get out, or be wary of that and be ready to kind of pull the trigger and take your profits. A falling star would be the exact opposite pattern, by the way, if you were looking at, let's say, like a falling star, and that would be more of a bullish signal, where this is a shooting star is more of a bearish signal. A different type of signal, and this kind of works with our gaps, if you looked at the lessons around gaps, is rising and falling windows, right? And so really what you're seeing is it's kind of like a gap up. It could be a breakaway gap, it could be a runaway gap, but for a rising window, you have basically a gap up. And what happens is the third day in the pattern does not go down to fill the gap. Sometimes people trade and they're like, oh, I anticipate it's going to go down because we had this gap and it's not really a lot of volume behind it, not a true, let's say, breakaway gap. So that third day, it's going to come back down as far as what we'd be watching for. And if it doesn't come back down, then we have a true breakaway gap. And this would be in a case of what you could call a rising window pattern, where the gap isn't filled and the upward trend continues. So you're kind of looking for this pattern in this example where you have a rising window, where you have a gap, and then you have that continuation of the trend. It doesn't go back and fill that gap. Kind of fulfills that whole definition of a gap that we learned about in other lessons too. The same thing with a falling window. You're really looking at a gap down, right? We're looking at our bars from left to right. We can see we've had some downward trend. That's the red candlesticks in a falling window versus the green candlesticks in a rising window. So we have this candlestick. Now we have a gap, and they're both red, so we're both going downwards. Our prices are falling. And then the third day in the pattern does not go up to fill the gap, right? It doesn't go up and do that to basically fill the gap and try to maintain that more overlap. It's going to keep going down. And so that's more of a falling window, and really kind of a confirmation that the gap is a true gap, and that the trend is being a really established trend is happening, and that trend is going to continue. Again, breakaway gaps are going to look at creating new trends, or this could also have been a runaway gap, which is a continuation of a previous trend that we're not seeing on the images here. So look at the gap lessons again to see, to reinforce stuff about gaps. But basically what's happening in rising and falling windows is the trend is going to continue after the gap and really be established, versus coming back downwards and filling that gap. And that's what you want to watch for.